Scott.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, what's up, brother?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Good, real good, real good. Now, you in LA?
No, I'm in New York.
Oh, okay. Good thing. I hear
Yeah,
LA is melting right now.
yeah. Where are you at?
I'm in Chicago, just outside of Chicago.
Oh, cool. All
Yeah,
right. Yeah. How was it down there?
good, good. Not too bad. I got a ton of friends in LA, and all their posts are just of them melting. It's 120 degrees.
Oh, yeah. It's hot as heck down
Yeah, yeah. Mike, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
All right. How are you?
You have one of my favorite band shirts on. I'm
All
a
right.
huge UFO fan.
Oh man, so am I. So am I. Yeah, very cool.
He was one of my biggest influences, Michael Schenker.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I would imagine. I mean, for everybody, I think, players
Yep.
and non-players. Yeah, totally, totally.
Even when he did the early Scorpions before that.
Yep, yep. Yeah, that first record. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, very inventive stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So,
And live even better.
yeah. I got a chance to see him later in life. I grew up with two older brothers, and I went to a lot of shows in the '70s, but and not UFO, and they've always been one of my favorite bands. But I got a chance to see him on that reunion with Michael, and that was pretty fantastic. It was amazing.
Yeah, I was surprised actually how bigger his tone was live than it was on the record. It was a great sound.
Yeah. And I saw him in a small theater, which doesn't always have great sound, for acoustically and things like that.
Right.
But I mean, he just shined right through that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
I only saw them twice, and one same deal. One was like a 300 seater, and then another one was maybe 1,000 seater.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, Mike, are you in LA right now?
Right now I'm in Muscle Shoals.
Oh, you are? Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Because
So I have a little place in Ventura, but my main place is Muscle Shoals.
Okay.
Where I do most of everything.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that too. And first, let me introduce you guys. For anybody who's not in the know here, I am with Tony Covino, singer for In Theory, and Mike Mostert, guitarist for In Theory and CEO of Go-Go Tuners. And let's start there. You guys appear on the Go-Go Tuners family record, and I think there's some confusion about who is In Theory, and are we going to get more? Because there's, I think two tracks on there. I can't find my way, I think, and so. What is the story within Theory? Is it a project? A one-off? You got the newest single, Heroes.
Right.
You guys are productive. So it's a band? Yes.
It's a band. Yeah. The band is Tony and I, and we're the best way to say it. It's a band. It's Tony and I's music, and and just try to create these players that we think would fit around the band. So that's where we are now. And so like this particular record, like Heroes, what you're hearing is Clayton Ivey. He's from, I'm not sure if you know who he is.
No.
But Clayton in Muscle Shoals, he's one of the keyboard legends. I think he's sold close to about 400 million records. Wow. And played with anybody from Aretha to Percy to almost every big country hit. That's Clayton. It's pretty ridiculous, and
wow.
I think probably about 3,000 or 4,000 records, something crazy like that. And the drummer is my good buddy Andy Sinisi. He's the drummer for Missing Persons. Okay. Plays with Frankie Valli, but he also plays with Sebastian Bach and a few other folks. And then the backup singer is from Lanisha Latimer from Stevie Wonder's band.
Crazy.
And on bass, we had this young kid from Muscle Shoals, and how we got him was sort of, again, a little bit by accident. He was filling in for the other engineer. The other engineer was kind of freaked out with the pandemic, so he closed down his studio. And I was itching to get in because when this pandemic hit, I just started writing. I had all these songs ready to go for the In Theory band. And he goes, well, you can use my substitute, the assistant, if you want. I'm like, perfect. For my writing process, all I need is an engineer with the loop so that I can start writing, get these ideas and hear how they would actually really sound. And then I go, well, you know what? It would be kind of cool to put some bass on it. And sheepishly, he goes, you know, I play a little bass. I'm like, okay. And he started playing bass. I'm like, yeah, he's the right bass player. He's like a John Paul Jones, but with the note selection of the DeLeo from the Stone Temple Pilots. Like, you put those two together, that's him.
Wow.
And turns out that this kid just won a Grammy for the engineer on the last Rival Sons record.
No
Best
way.
Right. So that's our lineup of In Theory. But when the Go-Go record came out, originally that was, again, that's the creation of Tony and I. Tony and I said, how would we do a hard rock band in 2019, 2020? So the original lineup was these guys from Nashville. And unfortunately, the bass player and the drummer ended up outside the band. They ended up suing each other. They had a business dealing. And when that occurred, I didn't want to ruin the vibe of what Tony and I were creating. I thought that's best. Let those two guys settle it out. And I had to I thought it was better to leave both those out instead of just taking one of the two.
Yeah.
So In Theory is, the creation of Tony and I, and then we fit the right players behind it. And, and when we go live, it will be with the Stevie Wonder, backup singer and Andy from Missing Persons. Will they be a formal band member? I'm not sure. I don't think so, but will they be the touring members of In Theory? Yes. Just like if you saw the Michael Schenker group, he's got Michael Schenker group, but he's got all these different players.
Yep.
But it's still at the end of the day will always sound like Michael Schenker.
Yes.
So that's the same concept. But with this one, I think, Tony and I just really pushed ourselves way, to a few other levels from the Go-Go record. I think the Go-Go record was the tip of the iceberg of what we could do. And that's where I thought the silver lining of the pandemic occurred was originally the whole plan was to bring Tony down and everybody down to Muscle Shoals. And we were going to do an old school, like Zeppelin, Beatle record, have everybody in the same room, put the baffles up, feed off each other. And when the pandemic hit, that was not going to happen. Right. So instead, my thought process is, I want to be the best student I can. So I just started immersing myself in everything. I wanted to learn every little style of guitar and producing and writing. And it's probably no exaggeration. I have over 60 pages of songs and song ideas. And I started thinking what the best ideas would be. And then I would send it to Tony. I go, what do you think about this? And we did it very, primitive. I would send it like by iPhone. I'd play an idea, and then he'd sing it back. He goes, I like this, I don't like this. And then we just started piecing songs together. And I think that was what I think made the songs even better, because it gave me an extra, 3 or 4 months to really write and hone my craft, in all those aspects. And then same thing with Tony. When Tony finally got to do the vocals, he had to do the vocals up in New York. And again, I want to push Tony to a level where I think Tony's always been excellent, but I want to make Tony, like an elite singer. I think because I think Tony is, I think when people hear these tracks, they're going to say, "Wow, he's great," and on these particular songs, there's probably about 200 takes per song, and it wasn't for a performance thing. It was just more of a little nuance. Did we get the right emotion? Did we get the right, feeling on this? And so a line by line item, I had to think as a producer, okay, what are we getting every little thing across, from vocally? And, and I always make the joke, and it was really no joke, but, there were times where I think Tony was going to, choke me through the Zoom message. And, he would send me the tracks, and, and a lot of times I'd be like, nah, it's not right. The feeling is not right. You need to do this, or change one word on this, or, so I think that made Tony a better singer because he was obviously singing as for a record. But imagine singing for a record 200 times, 300 times for a record. So he's doing that 600, 700 times sing it. And so I think when he was doing that 8-10 hours a day, 4 months, 5 months, just like I equate it to like, weightlifting or even practicing guitar. If you just practice for a week, you're only going to get, like this much better, right? You'll be okay. But if you lift for 6 months or you lift for a year, by the end of the year, you may not see the progress in the 2 months in, but as time goes on, you look back, you're like, wow, look how far I've progressed. Look at these chops that I've grown, and I think that's what occurred with Tony. And I mean, he's just phenomenal on these tracks.
No doubt.
And, and we already have several songs in the tracks, and, and the reaction we're getting from everybody is, wow, like, who is that singer? even from the most jaded industry guys, like some of these guys, like I was surprised, like, even, say like the Clayton guys and a lot of Nashville and Muscle Shoals producers, these guys have been on thousands of records. And a lot of times, and a lot of times they're doing sessions, what I call sessions with a smile. They get paid, they're doing it. But every time, if they get done with a session, I play all the tracks. And every reaction was like, holy crap, who is that singer? Like, oh my God. And the other thing is, I think people were very surprised that there is hard rock down here, because this is known for a certain sound, right? You have the R&B type of sound. I mean, there's some exceptions, right? When Steven Tyler came down here and Rival Sons came down here. But for the most part, it has a unique sound, that's legendary. So I think we were able to capture there's a touch of R&B. There's definitely a touch of Soundgarden. I call it swampy, not Southern. There's definitely like a, there's definitely whatever you want to call it, like a swampy rock feel to it. Oh, yeah. But then you add Tony's vocals, and Tony's just shredding it, where it almost takes you almost to, like I said, almost like a Chris Cornell meets early Deep Purple, and then you add a gospel choir on it. And, and there's definitely a few other modern production things that's my influence as well, where like I'm a big Tom Morello fan, and then I'm doing some Tom Morello type of stuff underneath, if you want to call it, like that song Heroes is what they call like open G tuning. So I'm not sure if you're a guitar player or not.
No.
Okay. So open G tuning, the majority of the blues songs are in open G tuning, and one of the reasons is when it's tuned to an open G, if you just fret one fret, just one note across, you got a chord. Okay. And back then, when they didn't have technology, they would almost assign somebody like, you're the jukebox of the family on the farm, or
I'm not sure.
So that made them available to play all these songs. And if you listen to a lot of like the, Humble Pie, definitely Zeppelin 1 and 2, I mean, Deep Purple, they're all using open G tuning on their first records.
Right.
And sure enough, that song Heroes is open G tuning, but it doesn't sound open G. The intro sounds open G. The rest of stuff is, if you go to the verses, it's a little bit sounds, it's just detuned almost like a 90s Soundgarden, and then if you got the bridge, it's a techno guitar part. We actually pulled the drums out, put a techno beat in, and I'm just doing this octave thing that Tom Morello would do. And there's like 5 octaves of guitars. Some are going low, some are going high, and you got Tony's doing his Soundgarden against Stevie Wonder's choir, and it all makes sense somehow. And
it does. I mean,
and I think we were able to accomplish that, so.
Yeah, it's a tasty nugget for sure. There's a lot, I listened to the Family album, and there's just a ton of, it's a huge mix of things, and it's so tasty, with the backup singing and the just so much passion and soul to it. And in theory, really tapped into that.
Yes.
And I know you guys from Big Mouth,
Right.
and that was, that Jakey Lee Badlands kind of thing is what it reminds me
Right.
of. That swampy blues, heavy hard rock thing. And I love that stuff. Now,
Right.
you're talking about putting the backup singers and stuff into it and things like that, and like that Hammond sound.
Right.
That I'm so looking forward to that. That's right up.
Yes. I think see if you add the Hammond from Clayton, like everybody in Muscle Shoals goes, Clayton, it's Muscle Shoals. I mean, that Hammond, but when Clayton's playing it, he's thinking Don Airey, he's thinking Deep Purple,
Okay.
but the people in town, they've never, it's a weird thing. The majority have not heard that. So this is all fresh to them. They're like, oh my God, hard rock down here? Like, oh my God, But but I think you're right though. I mean, the way that I did the Go-Go record is there's so many different styles and so many different things throughout each song, right? From song to song to song.
Mm-hmm.
But in theory, I think we were able just to put enough, like I was making like a good recipe, just a little Zeppelin, 2 pieces Soundgarden, 1 piece Rage Against the Machine, 1 piece Stevie Wonder's, a Baptist choir, so I think we just put enough blends into it that created our own sound. And then on top of that, and then like I said, you add Tony's just ridiculous vocals. And I think Tony really sets the tone from the first note that he hits. It's like, you better hold on, and that's why I think people make the joke. There's like that little spaceship thing that sounds like in the intro. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, you're about to take off. And then Tony's first vocal line, you are just taking off.
Totally. Now, Tony, your approach to this, like with like I say, I know you're from Big Mouth, and it's similar, but it's got that little bit more flavor now. What's your approach to this as opposed to what it was before?
I think what Mike said also about the different tunings of your guitar, believe it or not, as a singer, it brings out certain tones out of your voice that we've never, I mean, me and Mike worked on a lot of music together. We've never really did that kind of tuning. We ended up we did a couple of live shows, just me and him, acoustic, and we did acoustic versions of the 2 songs that are on the Go-Go Tuner record, Can't Find My Way. And we also did a new song that we wrote, Memory, and we did it acoustically. And it caused me to pull back, but as well incorporate pulling back and also a rock sound. And through that, we got a lot of good reaction out of it. And I didn't change my style. I never sang acoustically before. So the qualities and the tones that we got out of it, when me and Mike were done with this little mini tour that we did, we said, we gotta incorporate that into our new stuff. And then he started incorporating with open G tuning and things like that, like what Robert Plant used to sing to, that open G that just, it's just, you can't hit a wrong note with open G. It's just killer. And then I started singing out. I'm like, wow. I was like, this is, I was coming up with all these things in my head. Like I just hear tones in my head, and it brought out different qualities. And then like Mike said before, we were pushing ourselves. Well, he was pushing me to put more emotion. I'm more like, I came from that school of technical singing, like that, that Ronnie James Dio kind of thing. And he would go emotion, but he was always on pitch and things like that. And Mike was more like, we got to get the emotion, and you're on pitch. He tells me I'm on pitch. I just don't think I'm on pitch because I'm pouring out the emotion of the words. So it was a different approach for me singing that way, and combine all that stuff in a nutshell, brought us to where we are now. It's like I think the band and everything encompassed his guitar playing and my singing, and the band as a whole. We created a sound for ourselves, and I think this is just the beginning of where it could go.
Well, that's fantastic. And you were saying that, you know, there's a lot of notes and pages and pages of notes and
Yeah.
songs. How much do you have recorded, and how do you plan to release it? You know, a lot of people are doing singles one at a time, smaller EPs. Some people are just streaming, not releasing any physical copies. How do you guys plan to release stuff?
Well, I think right now the plan is we're going to do 3 singles, right? And then eventually release a full album. So, but we're going to space out how we do the singles. Well, I think it's going to be every 45 days or so will be the next single, and then another 45 days. So the plan, hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, hopefully in about, you know, 90 to 120 days, we finish the other X amount of songs, because there's other songs that we already have the beds for. You know, we just have to finish up the vocals. So hopefully by the time we get to the 3rd single, we'll have a full album done that will release as a full album. And, you know, the plan is to do a sort of like a limited edition, you know, album for, you know, for the fans that like, in theory, that like the music. But as far as the initial streaming will be the first 3 songs.
Nice. You guys have done work for film and television. I know that, you know, it's a lot of your living, I would imagine. What's the biggest difference in doing that as opposed to doing something like this?
You know, go ahead, Tony, if you want.
I was going to say, I mean, interesting enough, when we've done, like they selected songs of ours that we recorded for TV and for sitcoms and things like that. We never particularly wrote for a movie. Like they basically picked our songs to be in these things.
Right.
So I at least for me as a singer, I wasn't like, you know, write me a country song and I all of a sudden started singing country. I just sang the way I sing, whether it be, you know, Big Mouth or In Theory or whatever it is. And then we basically had someone find movies that our stuff fit in. And so to me, there's really no difference. I'm singing these songs regardless.
Right.
And if you know, Coppola wants to use one of my songs in one of his movies, great. You know,
great.
Yeah. At least that's my take on it. You know.
Okay. Yeah. Same for you, Mike.
It's the same, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have to change our style. You know, the movies were actually fitting our music around the scenes that they thought it would fit.
That's great.
And for some reason, the songs they were picking,
a lot of strip club scenes,
a lot of strip club scenes, and a lot of
sex scenes.
Yeah,
not so bad.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing. As I said, it was really almost every song was always thrown into some sort of episode like that, except for when we did
Anna Nicole Smith, right?
Anna Nicole Smith. Yeah, she's topless in a car.
She's driving in a car and the radio's playing and it's all.
I think it was the most. I think it was on what, Hallmark or TLC, but it was the most watched.
Yeah.
Was that
Lifetime, I believe.
Lifetime, but it was the most watched show on Lifetime in history.
Yeah,
and we're in that. The only episode that was the one that they didn't put in a sort of like a, you know, sexual scene or related type of scene is when we were on NBC on Kath and Kim.
right.
Who's that? And who's that? The one.
Wedding scene, right?
Yeah, it was a wedding scene, and then the groom and the bride are actually singing the lead vocals as the band, which I thought was such a great way to do an outro of a sitcom, with the ending on playing 90 seconds of one of our songs.
That's got to be pretty cool to you know, it's pretty creative, you know. I mean, you guys perform the songs and that's what you do, and then they take it to like a whole new level with that, you know, putting into theater, a little bit of theater into it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm trying to remember who that is. She's a is it Amy Poehler, or is the other one? I forgot who it was.
No, it was. Oh God, I forgot her name.
She's the brunette that.
Anna Kendrick.
No, she's.
She was in SNL.
She's from Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
Okay.
That was NBC. She had a show on NBC, Kath and Kim. I believe.
Kath and Kim, right?
Yeah, I can't remember. But that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. You guys are still open to sharing your songs with film and television like that?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it
absolutely.
would. Yeah, I mean, it would be nothing normal. Like if any, movie wanted to put any, Rolling Stone song or Led Zeppelin song in one of the movies, we look at it the same way. If our song fits the movie, of course, because we're in the movie, we get rotation play. I mean, and how cool is that? I mean, it's so cool.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to that. I mean, it's all music is out there anyway, so why not put it in the movie?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, Tony, you mentioned that you're very technical in your approach to singing. What kind of vocal training have you had? Any, or are you?
Yeah, training. I trained with Don Lawrence in New York City, and Don Lawrence is anywhere from Mick Jagger to Lady Gaga, Christina Aguilera, Sebastian Bach, go on and on, Whitney Houston, all these singers.
Wow.
So, technically it's basically like the technical training is like lifting weights. When you're on stage, you're on the football field. It's that kind of thing. When you go sing, you just sing.
Right.
The scales and the stuff is just to keep you up and limber and keep your chords loose. So, it's a practice in that and taking care of yourself. You can't go out and drink and, smoke and do all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, that technically, but, now more and more, I mean, I still do, I always do my technique, but now I'm getting into more, opening up like we were doing in theory. I want to be a more rounded singer, more emotional singer. I'm a big fan of Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons. I call it a lot of different speeds. You could sing acoustically, you could sing the rock, you could sing both at the same time. A lot of different change ups in your approach, and that's what I'm striving to be.
Right. And well, that's the other thing I was trying to get Tony out of his box, because he is well trained, and I think a lot of well trained singers, it's their blessing and a curse that they are so trained. Mm-hmm. And I'm always saying, don't think technical, think how you can move somebody, and I always equate to look at John Lennon. He was not the greatest singer, didn't have the biggest range. Ray Charles didn't have the biggest range, but you know what? They sing one word, one sentence, and they're moving it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I really want to stress that, same thing, because guitar players are the same thing. How many guys can play guitar all over? I mean, you see it all day long on YouTube and Instagram. There's so many guys with chops, it's ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
But I think they make the music suffer, and I think they make the music boring after 2 or 3 tracks. It's just like, okay, here's another great thing I can do. Okay, here's another great chop I can do.
Right.
But who can remember the solo? Who can remember a great riff? And it's like we were talking earlier about Michael Schenker. He's so musical in his riffs.
Oh.
You can almost sing a Michael Schenker riff. You can sing a Brian May guitar riff.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is one aspect, but I also think the other aspect, what a lot of guitar players, overlook, and Tony had mentioned, not in this interview previously though, is actually coming up with the rhythm riffs that are memorable, and I think that's what makes Hendrix great. That's what makes Jimmy Page great. Mm-hmm. When someone does, whatever, boom, they know, okay, I'm in on that song. And, and that's a craft, not only a minute amount of people can actually write riffs rhythmically that you'll remember for life, and so that's what I was trying to accomplish also, like I said, with Tony's vocals, just move people. Don't worry about being perfect. Worry about, are you moving? When someone listens to it, are they like, wow, are they being moved?
Yeah. And, I just see both sides of the coin, Tony, with you. is, you know, you have that technical sense, and you can, I mean, I took a couple of years of vocal training myself, and I just, you can hear it, you know, you have a lot of control. But you also have that loose swagger passion thing going on, and that's an unbelievable package to have.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a big compliment, you know.
And I look forward to so much from you and this band.
Thank you.
Mike, let me ask you, your technical sense, how have you trained in your guitar, you know, early on, or do you keep a regimen to keep the chops up, or, you know, do you have a degree, music degree or anything like that? Or
No. No, I mean, I started playing when I was very young, and I had, you know, I had jazz teachers early on, you know, when I was a teenager. But if I would have to say that I don't remember one thing from all those jazz training. You know, for me, it's. I think I always say I know enough to be dangerous, and but I'm also I think my ear is really good, as far as I don't need to know every little, you know, what would I call it, whatever, you know, this one's a flat 13th, 7th, 8th augmented. I don't need to know that. It's like, does it sound right to my ear? Right. And but that was the first level of doing it. But how, especially in the last 15 years or so, you know, there's a wonderful thing called YouTube. And on YouTube, you know, it gives you shortcuts of, okay, this is what this guy's doing, or this is what this person's playing, and I'm watching, and then of course it opens me up to other music. So, you know, a lot of times what I do is I have a certain amount of chops that I do, and a certain amount of skill set, but I apply it to all, like, you know, I'll play the same thing over, you know, it could be a UFO song to a Bonamassa song to Etta James song to this, and like what works, what doesn't work. And then vice versa. I'll hear something like, okay, what was that technique? What did they do on that? And then I'll go learn that technique. And then so through the years, I've just been, you know, acquiring more and more technique as time goes on. And it's really just based on what's catching my ear. I'm like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like this. Oh, I like that. And then I try to perfect it, you know, or perfect it the best I can. How's that?
Yeah, that's a ton of self-discipline. And, you know, from the Big Mouth record, you know, which I've heard the most, you know, I mean, those, it's unbelievable. That's such a great record. For anybody who doesn't know, go listen to that record, you know, to prep you for what you're about to hear within theory. You know,
Right.
and I would imagine, you know, it's you're going to be similar to that record, just with all these different flavors, and that's an exciting thing for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet? I know you've known each other forever. Were you guys childhood friends, or did you meet on at gigs and stuff like that? Or, you know, how did you guys get together? It's been, you know, a long relationship. I know that.
Yeah. No, actually we met, originally there was Big Mouth before Mike, and we were looking for guitar players, and Mike came down for an audition. It's just as we were forming the band, and we invited Mike down for an audition, and that's the first time we met, you know, and he came in, and, you know, he's just a phenomenal guitar player, and we were just like, you know, this is the guy. And then ever since then, we've always had this relationship. Yeah.
Man, you know, and that's shocking to me, because even on that record, that, you know, that was 94, 95, you guys sound like you have gelled. You've been gelling. You've been in the oven for a while. You know, you guys, you know, were together for a long time. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, back then, you got to remember, there was no internet, right? So we cut our teeth practicing and playing out live. That was the old school way. Then we did showcases for, we used to book SIR in Manhattan and have record companies come down. I mean, that was like the old school way of, you wanted to make your bones, you had to play, you had to practice, you had to get A&R reps down to your shows.
Right.
If they couldn't come down to your shows, we used to book SIR studios in Manhattan, get them down there just for a solo showing. So we come from that old school way of coming up. And now today, the great thing is we're, like with being on your show and getting radio play and stuff like that, we have that experience, and we're also trying to incorporate it into the modern way of how bands promote themselves. So I think we got a really cool 1-2 punch. But yeah, going back from the early days of that band, as me and Mike have always done something in one shape or fashion.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
And I think Tony and I are, we're kindred brothers from, an unfortunate circumstance that I do think outside influences, shape your music. It's not just what you do musically. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Tony and I, early in the early part of Big Mouth, both our brothers were, died, within several months of each other. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing that really made us, so close from day one. And, it still influences us. Like when you hear the third song, we do a song called Memories, and it still has something to do with, with the loss of, of our brothers, and here it is, many years later, it's still a part of what, messaging of Tony and I, and still keeps Tony and I at the hip as well, so.
Right.
That's great, and I think that's so important, because like I say, I felt that. I guess that's part of what I'm feeling in that Big Mouth record is, you guys you're gelling, it's a cohesive sound. It sounds like it's in a room. It's very together. You guys are on the same page for sure. So yeah, and I think emotionally, any experiences, especially for a singer, coming through the voice, you can hear those emotions coming through if you're doing it right,
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The more, it's fortunate and unfortunate. The more tough things you go through, I believe it does make you a better singer, a more emotional singer. Let's say that.
Yeah.
So if you're more emotional, you're a better singer, because obviously our job is to get across to people. So, so I believe that.
Excellent. Do you guys remember the first record you ever bought? What was your introduction to music?
My first one. I can remember actually I got three records. I remember it was for Christmas. So my very first three was Aerosmith Rocks. It was Kiss Live, and it was Angel Hell of a Band.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite bands. Love that band.
And those were the first three. And I was talking about my brother earlier. He was 3 years older, so he's one who was exposing me to.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
So he was exposed to me to all this music. So that was my first taste into like hard rock. And then right after that, he took me to my first show, which was Triumph.
Oh, nice. Now, who is this?
And, what was that?
Who is it? That
was my brother.
Okay.
So he took me to my very first show. It was in Hempstead, Long Island. And I had front row for Triumph. I was, 14 years old or 15 years old. And I remember Rick Emmett gave me his guitar pick at the time, and I was like, "Oh my God, Rick Emmett!"
Very cool.
But that was it. That's what got the bug going.
Man,
that's
fantastic.
That's when I was like, I don't know about these jazz teachers.
Yeah, right.
We recently saw Angel live in Nashville.
Yeah,
about a year and a half ago at a local club, and they still kick ass, man.
Yeah.
They blew us away. I mean, Domino is at the top of his game vocally.
It was unbelievable. I wasn't sure what I was going to hear. You know, I saw that show with Stars last year here in St. Charles, Illinois, and it was unbelievable. You know, I was listening to them when I was just a little kid. And I'm 51, so you know, having two older brothers, those were the records that were around.
Right. Because if you were an Angel fan, you had to be a Stars fan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. You know, I'll never forget that record sitting there with that big logo on it.
Right. You can never forget the Stars logo.
Never forget it. No way. So that was, you know, I was a little kid again last year when I, you know, saw them together like that, and it was like I was a little kid. It was almost like the 70s. These guys were just amazing.
Right.
And it was so great to hear. It's really good to see guys that didn't necessarily get the respect that they deserved back in the day so much. I just felt like that band should have done so much more, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Tony,
they were right on the cusp. They almost right when they released Foxes, right? They were just about to break it. Yeah.
I remember in Circus Magazine, they were always, you know, they had the poll, the readers poll, and they were always in there. Like, when is this actually gonna break for them? And it never did. But yeah. Tony, your first record, first musical experience on record?
Well, I got into music basically. My older brother was signed to Atlantic Records.
Okay.
We're a lot of years apart. We're like 15 years apart. I was a surprise baby.
Okay.
But, at the time, he was signed to Atlantic Records, and he played at I believe it was the 1969 World's Fair in Queens, which was a pretty big deal. Actually, he used to do a lot of shows in the local church with a band called Vanilla Fudge back in the day, and they used to play on the same bill and stuff like that, which is really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, back in the day was a whole different thing. And then I have a cousin, Joey Franco, who's a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
He played in the band the Good Rats.
Yeah.
Yeah, he filled in a year in Twisted Sister. He was a Twisted Sister member, and he's played on a ton of other records. You know, he did a lot of studio stuff from Taylor Dane to Mariah Carey and things like that. Now he's very successful. He's in the city, has his own production company in the city and studio. So it was that opening that door, because I always thought it was cool. Joey was never at the family weddings or the family party. He was always doing a gig, you know. And I'm like, I want to do that.
Him.
Yeah. But as far as the first records, I remember as a kid having the Kiss Alive album open in my living room and looking at the pictures and thinking, you know, these guys are like from Mars. Like, that always attracted me. Like, I want to be like that. Like, you know, I want to be cool like that. I remember buying an AC/DC Back in Black record. And then as a singer, I really, when the early Striper came out and I heard Michael Sweet sing, I'm like, I was like, how the hell do you sing like that? Like, that really got me into, I want to, you know, I want to sing like that. Like, that was, and then of course Dio and I mean, and unbelievable, like the old Deep Purple when they had Coverdale and Glenn Hughes as singers.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. So I really became, like, I was interested in singing, and but that was like my first thing into music, like just all those things kind of combined together.
Awesome. Yeah. Very similar to myself. So I know exactly. Taking it to Detroit, man. I used to listen to that over and over.
Yeah, Pepe Marcello, man. He was a great singer. I mean, talk about a band that didn't get their due, right? When Rush came first to America, Rush opened up for Good Rats at the Nassau Coliseum.
Man, that's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible what they accomplished. I mean, you know.
And that's the first thing I noticed, oddly enough, with Twisted Sister, is that's a line from the Good Rats song. You know, I think it's I forget exactly what the line is, but there's a Twisted Sisters line, and they're both.
Right, there's a Twisted Sisters something Father after that.
Yeah, I think it was don't forget the ones that bring you rock and roll. That's the song from the Good Rats.
Yeah, right.
But he originally wrote that for Dee Snider, and Dee Snider didn't take the song because he thought he's like, who the, you know, basically Dee was like, who the fuck are you to write a song
Right.
for me? Like,
Right.
he didn't mean it like that. He meant it, you know, like, here's a cool song that I think would fit. But
Right.
there's a line in there about Twisted Sisters.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, Dee talked about that recently, and he, you know, he remembers Peppy fondly, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember as a kid getting into the shows. My cousin would let me in, you know, like when they played local schools or theaters and stuff like that. And I remember him throwing the rubber rats in the audience, and
Right.
I was
He
just,
had the bats with the garbage can and
bats with the garbage can, and you know, I was like, no, I want to do that, like, you know, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you guys listen to the same things like when you're not recording and you've had a lot of time on your hands probably with this pandemic? Do you find yourself listening to those things still to this day?
I think some of our influences overlap, but I think I have probably listened to a lot more maybe blues and pop versus Tony. I mean, I listen to a lot of pop. I like the craft of a great song, you know, and so I listen to a lot of pop music. But I also I just love the blues, you know, and just finding obscure blues guys. So I think that may be the differences, but all the other stuff is probably very similar to what Tony and I listen to. You know, whether it's, you know, Rival Sons or Deep Purple or, you know, it could be anything, Skid Row or Striper, Angel. I mean, Tony and I definitely have some that are the same, but I know there's definitely some people that, you know, I'll send it to him. I can tell he's like, I'm not feeling it. But, you know, like I listen to like Marcus King. I'm not sure if you know who that guy is. Or
familiar.
Marcus King is this young kid, and he's equally a great guitar player as he is a singer. And he can move you as a guitar player, and he can move you as a singer. Just not even as a band, even though he has his band, but he does some stuff where it's just him and electric guitar and singing on top of it. It'll move you.
Nice.
And but also, you know, I listen to like Joe Bonamassa. You know, I love Bonamassa. You know, they also that band like Rock Candy Funk Party, and you know, so there's stuff like that where I know that that's not Tony's necessarily wheelhouse, but you know, I love stuff like that, or even like Coco Taylor, and you know, I'll listen to like I said, even like Disney, believe it or not, like Disney stuff, you know, like Beauty and the Beast or an Elton John song, a well-crafted melody can move me just as much as, you know, like a Chris Cornell, you know, over the top vocal, or, you know, whatever. There's something about if someone can just do both, you know, if you give me a great melody and emotion, you know, yeah. So I think that's where we're a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, you know, I gotta apologize to you guys. It's Labor Day, and I'm getting musicians up at 9 a.m. You know, that's just sadistic in all ways. But you know, I appreciate your time so much today. And I'll let you get on with your day. But when can we expect music from In Theory? We got the single, and you said like what, every night,
about 40 days or so. Yeah.
So and then we're looking at a full album at the end of that.
Right.
So
right. If everything goes right, you know, before the end of the year, we'll have a full album out. Like I said, we already have a lot of songs that are already, you know, or in formation, or like I said, all the beds are done. We just have to add, you know, whether it's vocals or fine tune it or what we need to do. But we had a lot of, like I said, going into these first initial songs, you know, there's a lot of stuff we already recorded in the studio.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, we just started this like, okay, we'll take this one, this one, let's push back. And some of them just instinctively we're going with this one first. You know, some songs just felt right first because the way that ideas flow. you know, sometimes these things come more naturally. So that's how we're taking it. We're not forcing like, oh, this one has to be a ballad next. This one has to be a fast one next. It's what, you know, it's whatever's, you know, whatever's Tony and I are creating. If that's what we're feeling and that's what we're doing, that's what's going to come out.
And yeah, feel. It's all about feel.
It's all about feel.
Yeah, that's cool. And let me ask you one more thing. You're in Muscle Shoals and you recorded at the studio. Do you see yourself recording everything there? Is there enough there, with, you know, as far as technology and things like that? You know, I looked it up. I pulled it up because I have never been there, unfortunately. So I look it up and you know, pull it up on like Google Maps, and the building is, you know, it's, I mean,
yeah, it's like that big.
Yeah, it's tiny, tiny little thing, and I mean the mystique has to be incredible, the charm. But as far as technology, do you guys see yourself recording in the future, all of it there?
I would love to. Actually, most of the, obviously all the guitars are done in Muscle Shoals. All the producing is done in Muscle Shoals. The mixing is done in Muscle Shoals. On this record, all the bass and keyboards are also done in Muscle Shoals. Hold on a sec. I just lost you for a sec.
Yeah.
Okay. But as far as technology, what's occurred in Muscle Shoals over the last 2 or 3 years, it's a resurgence of like the 70s. You know, like obviously because technology's gotten so good over the last 15, 20 years, people can record a record in their bedroom or their living room. If you're pretty good being a halfway decent engineer, you can record an album in your living room.
Yep.
And that's why obviously so many major studios have gone out of business in Manhattan and, in LA and, a lot of major areas.
Yeah.
What's gone on in Muscle Shoals, especially because of I'm not sure if you saw the Muscle Shoals documentary, but they made, there was like the original 7 or 8 studios that sold whatever it was, 4 billion, 5 billion records, something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And, but what they're doing is they're reinvigorating those studios now. So Fame is, they're doing a lot of recordings out of Fame. They're doing a lot of recordings out of Muscle Shoals Sound, which was Jackson Highway, Cypress Moon. You got the Nut House. You have the new one's called the Ivy Mansion. That's another guy that's great. Just made the studio out of Mansion, put several $1 million into it. In fact, that guy's got the original 2-inch machines from Sound City in California.
Oh, yeah.
And now East Avalon, where we're doing the majority of the stuff, his name is Charles Holloman, and he came from North Carolina, and he actually bought 2 of the original studios. So he bought East Avalon and he bought Widget, and he's restoring both of them to their originals, what they were in the 60s and 70s. And Charles talked about having great gear, but he has some gear that, like the original Hammonds and like he showed me this picture of Jimi Hendrix. I forgot what these preamps are, but there's these 8 preamps that Hendrix used on the drums, vocals, guitars and so forth. And we're using that on Tony's vocals.
Oh,
right. So he has 2 of those original ones in his studio, but Charles has some of the greatest gear like on the planet. Like he's that guy. Like I call him like he's a quirky genius guy. Like I don't think he doesn't know a lot of stuff that he doesn't have. You go into the corners of his room, he's like, oh yeah, I got this preamp here. Oh, I got this limiter. And he's the only one now, I think, besides Fame and Abbey Road, to have what they call he turned a bomb shelter into a reverb room. So it's actually a real reverb. And obviously there's technology that can obviously emulate a reverb, but what they do is they'll fly a track into this room, and it's a 7 or 8 second reverb from the speaker to the corner of the room. And then they fly it back through the tracks. But that's how Fame did all their stuff. When you listen to those records from Wild Horses and Aretha Franklin, that's all that. That's
Wow.
all run through that echo, whatever bomb shelter reverb rooms. And so yeah, so you got I was gonna say, so you got Charles who reinvigorated East Avalon and Widget, and now you got this other guy. He's another Muscle Shoals legend. He opened up Wishbone again. So within maybe an 8-mile, 10-mile radius, you have 9 major studios working.
Wow.
And everybody's coming from that, all the, because obviously there's the mystique of the music that comes from this place.
Mm-hmm.
And, and there's a great interview that Joe Rogan did with Steven Tyler. And Steven Tyler talks about his experience going to Fame. And Steven Tyler walks in a room, he goes, wow, this is where Wilson Pickett, Percy Sledge, Aretha Franklin, Etta James. And they kept everything original. And Steven Tyler started crying.
Yeah.
Like, it moved him so much. And I think, honestly, I really think, that did, on another, did shape actually Tony's vocals as well. Because when we came down here to do originally like a photo shoot, I'm like, let's do a recording. And I was able to bring in what, I'm not sure if you know who the Swampers are.
No.
Okay. If you have to look up the Swampers in like the Muscle Shoals documentary. There's a Swampers, and then there's what they call like the other Swampers. I forget what their name was, but one guy, his name is Spooner, and he's the guy who created Aretha Franklin sound. Like, that, or when you hear the organ on When a Man Loves a Woman, that's Spooner.
Wow.
And sure enough,
they're still there doing it.
Yeah.
There's, well, yes and no. 2 of them died last year. But having Clayton play keyboards on the stuff that we just did and doing a recording with Spooner, so the fact that we got to play with these 2 legends in a matter of 3 or 4 months, it's just, honestly, it's unbelievable. But when I think when Tony got to sing with Spooner in a room, and I really think he's like the vocalist keyboardist, like there's something about the way he plays that brings out something special in the vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Tony wasn't expecting to sing that type of style when he was down here, and he was just feeling instinctually, but whatever Spooner was playing is, Tony was just whatever. Something different came out of Tony. And then I also think because of the folklore of the Tennessee River, I'm not sure if you know about that as well.
Yeah.
But there is something magical that really moves your soul as a musician. And for me, that's when I saw the first shift in Tony, and the first shift in myself. Because even myself doing the Go-Go record, you have to understand, like I said, I'm a rock guy, right? I mean,
right.
I'm a rock guy, and all of a sudden here I am. I'm conducting the Alabama Orchestra. I'm doing Latin pop. I'm doing, nylon string ballads. I'm just doing R&B. I'm doing Delta blues slide. And honestly, I never did any of that prior.
Wow.
But all of a sudden, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it at the, where I felt I'm doing it, where it's doing justice to this region. And I knew I was doing it correctly when the old school blues guys in their 70s and 80s, like what you would see like in a movie, like, hey boy, you ain't playing that blues right, that type of thing.
Right.
And so you got that. And the other story is, like, if you go down south here, they love to talk in the drive-thru. And then so many people were either a songwriter or a producer in the day. Like some of these like big guys, now they're working at a drive-thru. And when I was working on the record, I'm doing these blues slide things, and the guy's like, "What is that? What is that?" And I play it. And he goes, "Yo, boy, that sounds that's some Memphis you got going on there." And they don't care if there's 50 cars deep. The guy wanted to hear it 30, 40 times. So I knew, like, wow. And the same thing when you hear the second track, I open up with this Delta blues thing that, honestly, I don't know where it was coming from, except I'm not consciously trying to go for that, but it's coming out. And I think, like I said, so I think something here is making me, all this music's coming out that I didn't know that I had in me.
Wow.
And it did the same for Tony, and I think that's what shaped in theory of where it is now, that we're able to meld all these things out of, like I said, it's not a conscious thing. And we're like, just all these styles are coming in. And a lot of the times we don't know really where it's coming from, but we're just letting it go. If this is what's coming out of our bodies, this is coming out of our souls and minds, we are just going to keep rolling with it, because we love it. So
that's cool. Yeah, and it would probably be different if you weren't in Muscle Shoals.
Yeah, I think if I recorded any other place, it would have not come out the same.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's a special kind of magic. Channeling those old ghosts kind of thing.
Right.
Really, really pretty cool.
And that's what Stephen Tyler said too. He said his philosophy was the energy never leaves a place. All this stuff stays with you. And he could feel it. And what they did one step further with him is they played him like the old sessions on the 2-inch tapes. And you could hear the drum stool creaking, or the guy dropping a drumstick. And he felt like he was in their session.
Yeah. Wow.
And then they also let him sing on top of that. And but no matter who you talk to, whether it's Rolling Stones or U2 or Rival Sons or Paul McCartney, or any of those guys. Almost all those guys, they're talking about either they're coming close to like welting up, or they're talking about like there's something about it that's bringing out this music. They want that sound. And I think like I said, and I think it influenced Tony a lot, and it definitely influenced myself.
Wow, that's cool. Cool. Yeah, man, I look forward to In Theory music coming from there. And man, oh man, it's great talking with you guys. Thanks so much for taking time today.
Thanks for having us, and I'm glad you liked the track, and
everything I've heard, there's not many for me yet, but I love what I'm hearing for sure. Touring, I know that's a thing that doesn't happen, but if it ever starts up again, do you guys plan to take it on the road?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Don't forget us in Chicago, man.
Definitely not, man. Yeah, and we appreciate you having us on the show. It could be any day of the week, man. We're there. We just want to get in front of people and tell people about what we're doing, and hopefully eventually see everybody, face to face.
That would be great. Great. Yeah. And I want everybody to hear you too, for sure.
Thank you.
So, yeah, let's get it out there, and come see me in Chicago when you get a chance, man.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey guys, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you again.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.